Welcome to another episode of the Women's Hoop Show. It is still the WNBA playoffs, and you guys, it's been so good. It's been so good. Can't wait to get into it. Both semifinals are tied 1-1 in both of the series. We'll first discuss Mercury versus Lynx and how the Phoenix erased a 20-point deficit in Game 2 and what Napheesa Collier and Minnesota must tighten up before Game 3. I know Cheryl Reeve had some things to say to that team. Next, we'll tackle Aces versus Fever and how Las Vegas answered behind A'ja Wilson, the MVP, and leveled the series. We'll show the tweaks needed for Indy in Game 3 if they want to win. And then we have a coach's corner where we have so much to talk about. All the firings and why some other coaches are staying hired. I have some thoughts. We'll dive into it. So much to get to. Let's go. Kendra, welcome back to the Women's Hoop Show. So happy that you are here to break this down with us. Let's dive in because you are in Phoenix right now. You said how hot it is. You've been traveling between Minnesota and Phoenix for this series. And Game 2 was so good. I think we all thought it was not going to end in an overtime victory with Phoenix. I think we thought how the first half was going, that Minnesota was going to run away with this on their home court. They were going to be up 2-0. And then something changed in that third quarter. What changed, in your opinion, from being there and the vibes of being there?
It didn't necessarily, it was chip by chip, right? Like they just kept chipping away at it to a point where I was sitting next to my colleague Michael Vopel and we were just chit-chatting, and all of a sudden we look at the scoreboard and it's a 4-point game. We're like, okay, wait, we got to lock back into this because it did just happen. I saw a much higher level of execution from Phoenix there in that second quarter. Their 3-point shooting, if you look at the stat sheet, their 3-point shooting went up tremendously there in the third quarter and through the fourth quarter. And they just seemed to start to pick apart what really was working for Minnesota. You know, Sammy Whitcomb after the game said that Nate Tibbetts, their head coach, lit them up, and deservedly so, she said, in their locker room at halftime. And you just saw this, I don't know if it's like an attention to detail, but it was just this extra level of being locked in and being able to execute for the Mercury, and a lack of execution there for the Lynx. You know, they just really couldn't get anything going for them down the stretch. And I think my favorite anecdote from that game was that shot that Sammy Whitcomb hit to send it into overtime, where Nate Tibbetts said, "She saved my behind." Like, he said, "I should have called a timeout. I should have done this. I called a play. The play got absolutely demolished because can't remember who it was, but someone tipped Sammy's first shot, and then Sammy, there was a box out, there was a rebound by Satou Sabally, got it to Alyssa Thomas, who got it to Sammy Whitcomb, and then hit that shot." And so I just think it was a collective team effort and a collective team execution that was really lacking from the Mercury there in the first half.
Absolutely. And I think we heard it on the broadcast so much, and it was something that I was sitting there wrestling with. They just looked out of sorts. And I feel like more than we have ever seen them throughout the season. It wasn't, you know, in Game 1, I feel like a lot of the conversation was around fatigue and how they just looked tired because of that quick turnaround. But it wasn't necessarily fatigue. It was just these decision making and Alyssa Thomas not really scoring and being more of a facilitator, and they needed her to be more aggressive. And then it did seem like a light switch went off and said, no, be the aggressor. Minnesota seems to be a little too comfortable, too complacent. And that's what I think is exactly what happened to Minnie. And then you have the Mercury just coming out, and the difference in Satou specifically from Game 1 and Game 2, just not only able to knock down the three, but just being that unicorn that we know that she can be. So on the other end of that, from Minnesota, do you feel like they got a little too comfortable?
A couple weeks ago when we were having a conversation and we were talking about what the Achilles heel is for each team, and I said something that can concern me about Minnesota is that they might be their own detriment. And I think that that's what you saw when you're talking about they got too complacent, they got too relaxed. They took their foot off the pedal and then they couldn't get it back. And that's like that they're a better team than that, right? But that's the type of thing that can get these incredibly dominant teams is when they feel too comfortable, they kind of slow up. And with a team like the Mercury, you can't do that. Once you start losing the momentum that the Lynx did, it just unraveled. And it's so unusual for them because historically through this season, and like we even saw it in game one, they're a team where their third quarter differential, they have one of the best third quarter point differentials in the entire WNBA. And they, in game one, they talked about how their collaborative conversation at halftime was what upped their level of execution in the third quarter to really get that game won in a pretty like a controlling fashion. So I'm very curious to know what the conversation was like at that halftime of game two, because everything was lacking. And then I'd have to look at the box score again. I can't remember off the top of my head, but in overtime, I mean, Phoenix just absolutely dominated them in overtime.
Yeah.
They did not, the Lynx barely scored in that OT
Mm-hmm.
period. And so it is a little bit, if I'm looking at this game, I say it's a little bit more concerning for Minnesota because the Mercury are an excellent team. Took them a while to get going, but that was them executing at the standard that they're normally used to. But on the flip side, Minnesota just had such a drastic drop off. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen to them two times in a row. But it shows that they are very beatable and that they're human.
It was very uncharacteristic, just like you said. We're not used to a drop off in the second half. We're used to another speed, another level
Mm-hmm.
of them clicking in the third quarter. So that was very, very interesting. And they started to panic. That's what I saw. When you lose a 20-point lead and now you're going into overtime, even down to that final shot, I think Fee
Mm-hmm.
hits that shot 80% of the time. Like that was in her wheelhouse, in her spot. She just couldn't hit it. And then, yeah, I believe they only scored 4 points in overtime because
There you
all the
go.
momentum was swinging in the other direction for Phoenix. And I loved how much Fee and AT were
Oh
jawing
my
the
God.
entire game. It was woo! It was active. It was
It's
active.
exactly, this is what you want to see, right? This is what you want in playoff basketball. You want two greats head to head, chest to chest, jawing at each other. I have to just say, like, sinister little grin that Alyssa Thomas plays with is the best. Like, oh my
She's
God. She's
psycho. Yeah.
probably, yeah, she's probably saying the most hurtful things and just has like a smile on. That would drive me absolutely crazy. That would drive me crazy if I was her opponent.
For sure. No, you're going to sleep when you close your eyes, you're still seeing that smile. Like it's like the Joker. It is so
Oh my
it
God.
messes with your mental state and
Yes.
she knows exactly what she's doing. Someone was saying that AT might get kicked out of Unrivaled because she's messing with the founder. And Fee can be like, "No, you're
Oh my
not coming
God.
into my league anymore." No, I
I think
love this.
there's something with Fee though, because I remember when I talked to her and we were talking about Courtney Williams told me that Fee is she does she doesn't like to like trash talk. She's so mild mannered, but there is something about Fee though that she picks and chooses her moments, and so I don't know if she said anything back to AT in that moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if she said something so under her breath that the cameras we just couldn't quite pick it up.
I love it. It's playoff basketball where Nafisa Collier is talking trash. She's digging from her toes to get some trash talk in there. Maybe Courtney Williams is like whispering in her ear exactly what to
Yeah,
say to really get
exactly.
under AT's skin. But I love it, and I think it is going to continue throughout the rest of the series. And when we look ahead to game 3, We're in Phoenix. You're in Phoenix. Phoenix is very well at home. They just won 2 critical home games in the round 1. They booted the Jonas Brothers off of their court, which is so different in WNBA lore. This doesn't happen. This is like a really big deal. I don't think you guys really understand. The Mercury made a deep run in 2021, and Disney on Ice kicked them off their home court. Okay? So we've made strides. We've made it. I love the Jonas Brothers. First CD that I bought. I love them. Love them.
Maybe they'll sing the national anthem or something like that. Give us a halftime show, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
That would be great. All our millennial hearts would just absolutely love that. So now, looking ahead, how do you think this game 3 sways? Because a question I was asked, yes, it is momentum. You come back by 20 points. You win in overtime. But there's been a couple days since then. You've traveled, different venue. Do you think that momentum carries? Or is Cheryl Reeve like, we're nipping this in the bud immediately?
Hard to tell. And I think momentum in playoffs are so different than momentum through the regular season because you're just facing the same team. And you know that for the past 2 days, Cheryl Reeve has been in there drilling those points home of what they can and cannot afford to do. Also, the Lynx are a really good road team. They were tremendous during the regular season on the road. So I think it's hard. The things that I'm looking at, one area of the game that I'm looking at is bench production because in game 2, there are only 3 points off of the Minnesota bench compared to like 22 points coming off of the Phoenix bench. So that's one area that I'm looking at. The other thing is, again, like the stars on each team have to really show up. We talked about how Satu just took her game to a completely other level in the second half of game 2. And AT just became more aggressive in every aspect of her game in that second half. Also, Kalia Copper had a pretty quiet night, so I'm expecting her to do a bit more. But then on the Lynx side, I think Fee is going to still try and do Fee things as she does every single night. But when I look at what worked for them well in game 1, like Kayla McBride was absolutely like tremendous in game 1. Courtney Williams in the second half just she was like an energizer buddy there in the second half of game 1. And so for me, it's really hard to figure out, like we're talking about momentum, who's favored on it, because again, like the Lynx are a team that I don't know if you put together 2 like historically bad performances back to back with each other. But at the same time, I think that the Mercury figured something out that can work for them well there in the second half of game 2. So if they can carry it back home, like I had this series going to 5 games, so it's really hard to figure out like which side game 3. And game 3 in a best of 5 series is such a interesting. Like, it's just so interesting. I come from an NBA background where it's 7 games every series. And so game 3 is kind of like, okay, maybe, like, I don't know, like, or I guess if it's tied, I don't know. It has the same feeling. And game 3 in the NBA has the same feeling to me as a game 2 in the WNBA. And so this being such a pivotal moment, neither team wants to go down that 2-1. So I think there's going to be a lot of intensity here.
Oh, it's going to be intense. It is going to be intense. I don't think that's dropping off at all. I think the main thing that I keep thinking about for Minnesota, you mentioned it, the bench points and how crucial Natisha Heidemann is off the bench. And when she has great games, when she has 18 points, 20-point games, that's when you realize, yeah, this is an unstoppable team. But when you are able to still get great production out of your stars, Fee had 24, McBride 21, Courtney Williams 20 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and you still come up with the win, you are feeling so confident and so amazing. but it went to those turnovers, like a lot of unforced turnovers, a lot of what you said of them beating themselves. So I know that the Mercury's defense has always been a big thing for them. Will they get even more riled up, even more clamped down at home? Possibly. But I don't know. I still have Minnesota coming out of this series. I think it is still going to be good, but
when like I think it's hard when a team beats themselves, and like that's something that we talked about the Lynx doing, and it's something Fee talked about post game. And so when you have a team beat themselves, that makes it harder to figure out what's going to happen moving forward, because and giving Phoenix their flowers, deservedly so, for overcoming that 20-point deficit. They did a lot of things, but the Lynx gave them a lot of favors. And in that case, it's so hard to figure out what's going to happen, because as much as like I said, Phoenix did figure things out that worked, but it's not like they completely took Minnesota, like they forced them out of their game. Minnesota kind of forced themselves as well. And that makes, and like, again, that just makes it hard to figure out where teams actually lie, because I don't think Cheryl is going to let her team beat themselves the way they did in game 2. So it's I don't know. And then, but then again, like you have this Phoenix team that absolutely demolished the Liberty and blew a lot of stuff up in New York City, that you can't count them out either. And so this series, again, this is why this series was, as soon as the Mercury punched their ticket, it was like, this is going to probably be one of the best series of these playoffs, because these two teams are just incredible.
Incredible. 4 unforced turnovers in 65 seconds in that third quarter, going back to what we were talking about. That makes you just, as a coach, you throw your clipboard off that. That's just heartbreaking.
And you know Cheryl did more than probably throw her clipboard. Like, she...
My favorite thing with Cheryl Reeve is that she is so over these in-game interviews, and you're there, so you're not seeing what the attitude that she's giving during these in-game coaching interviews that I have been petitioning to abolish for so long. But she's sitting down, she gives the shortest answers possible, and every time that I think they mic her up, the Lynx turn it over, and she's like, our key to win is to stop turning the ball over. Like, it's just, I can only talk about what's in the moment and get this mic off of me immediately. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, well, that game 3 is going to come out Friday. It is Friday night. It's actually been really hard for 2 days to not have WNBA basketball. I hated it, so I'm excited for game 3 again. Call it now. Who you got winning game 3?
Oh, God.
Putting you on the spot.
No. Oh, God.
I know. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, jeez. The amount of anxiety that just entered my body is like insane. I refuse.
All right.
I refuse. Who do you have?
Okay. I'll give you some time to think about it. I got Minnesota, but then I have, well, we'll see how that game goes. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I was going to say, then I have Phoenix winning game 4, but I don't know. We'll see how the game goes. I have Minnesota just being too pissed off of giving up a 20-point lead. I've seen the bounce back.
Yeah,
before.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't know. I do not know. That is my official statement.
It's fine. We'll let it slide this time. Okay, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we are going to talk about the other side of the bracket with the Las Vegas Aces and the Indiana Fever. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Women's Hoop Show. And like we said at the top, both of these series are tied 1-1. Going into game 3, it is exactly what all basketball fans have hoped for and sent prayers for to the basketball gods. We're getting it. We're getting close series. But Game 2 was not particularly close in Las Vegas, going up against the Indiana Fever. They won pretty handedly, 90-68. Pretty opposite of Game 1, not only because they won, but by the margin of victory. And the starters were chilling with like almost 5 minutes left in the game. So it was a breeze, but some key differences. I think just overall play was very different. First of all, Asia Wilson said, y'all, I heard y'all. Y'all was talking about me, even though I still had a double-double. I'm going to come back with a vengeance and show you why I am the 4-time MVP. So we're going to stop that right now. And then the other side was defense. I think that was a huge part for the Aces. They were just seemed like a step slow in Game 1. And, Becky Hammond got on them for that defense. But those were the biggest differences for me.
Darn being on the road and on assignment, haven't gotten to lock in as deeply into this series as one would have liked and hoped to do. But I will say, I think from Game 1 to Game 2 of the Aces Fever series, from what I've been able to see and read and watch highlights on and go back on, I think, like, we were just talking about how in Game 2 of Minnesota, they kind of got too comfortable, let their foot off the gas. And I feel like when the Aces entered this series, that is a lot of what happened in Game 1, where they probably thought, never count a team out, especially with what this Fever team has accomplished so far. But they're clear, heavy favorites. Again, not a knock on Indiana, but you're without 5 of your top players, one, Caitlin Clark. So makes a little sense. You're also riding the high of Asia had just been presented with her MVP trophy earlier. And I think that's a hard mental shift to make from all of this celebration to, okay, you got to lock in and then go play a game. And so I think that Game 1 was a huge awakening for them of saying, oh, wait, okay, let's get back in. And as you said, I know that Becky let them know that as well. And then that's when Game 2 happened. For me, also, like you said, the defense. Like Game 1, they let Kelsey Mitchell do whatever she wanted in Game 1. And I think that was a really big wake-up call for them. She only had 13 points in Game 2. Everything, again, go back to like just execution, being able to do those little things that these championship caliber teams and MVP players have in them. And I just know Becky was whooping them after Game 1, saying, y'all better come correct for Game 2. Like, stop playing.
Absolutely. And I love what you said too, just the difference between Game 1 and Game 2. There's also just this difference of storylines, right? There are huge storylines here on both sides. If either of these teams come out of this semifinal, right? For the Aces, it's Asia Wilson winning her 4th MVP, this incredible second half of the season, this winning streak, this idea that no other team with this type of winning streak has not won a championship. They're on their way. This is totally different from the first half of the season. And then on the other side, for the Fever, you have, despite everything that they've been through, they're in the playoffs. And without Caitlin Clark and all these season-ending injuries, and Lexi Hall, she was questionable coming into Game 2, and she still gritted out and fought it out. And they are just like, on the verge of making history, right? And I think that both of these teams know each other's storylines. And there's this idea that the Aces, to your point, came in and said, well, we have the better storyline. Like, we have more pressure. We need, it would mean more for us to win than the Fever. And for the Fever, they're like, nobody even expected us to get this far. So we have no pressure on ourselves. We are riding this wave. And that was what I saw in Game 1. Kelsey Mitchell putting up 34 points was this
Ridiculous.
idea. Yeah, just like I'm playing free. She was at the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah.
It was like a clinic of how to score
Yeah.
basketball from Kelsey Mitchell. Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
then that 13 points, that under 30% shooting in game 2 was more of, okay, let's pay attention. Let's make sure she doesn't have this free range to the basket. Let's clog the paint. Let's run her off the 3-point line. It was just more attention to detail, which is what we even talked about for Phoenix in that second half. It was just like, put your thinking caps on, Aces, and not let her run away with this and make somebody else beat you. And then turns out nobody else could beat you.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. Like with the thing with the Fever that is unfortunate for them in this case, in this scenario, Kelsey Mitchell is their option 1, 2, 3, 4 right now. I mean, and Aaliyah Boston is tremendous as well. She's had a great season, but if you can stop Kelsey Mitchell, you have a pretty good chance of beating them. And again, it's not a knock on anyone else on Indiana. It's just the way, like when your depth is as demolished as theirs is, that's just what happened. I think even when you go back to the first round series of when Atlanta was playing Indiana, everyone had Atlanta coming out of that series. But again, Indiana just plays with how they're playing with house money. And
Yes.
people aren't taking them as serious. They're not locking in as early as they should. Unfortunate for Atlanta, that happened in the second 2 games of the series, where then the Fever could advance, whereas for the Aces, it happened in game 1. So now they can course correct over the next 2, 3, 4 games. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what they did. And as you said, you eliminate Kelsey Mitchell. You say anyone but her is gonna have to beat us, and then you just go down the line of what the Aces have. Oh, you're spearheaded by the 4-time MVP Asia Wilson. Well, then you have Chelsea Gray, you have Jewel, like they're an incredible. You have Nalissa Smith. They're an incredibly deep and dangerous team. And it's actually interesting now that I'm thinking, like we were talking about momentum with Phoenix and Minnesota coming back to Phoenix. Does that momentum carry over? I really do think that Phoenix carried momentum from game 3 against Atlanta into game 1 against Las Vegas. And
Mm-hmm.
then Las Vegas said, no, we're going to stop that right here and right now.
Yeah, let's put a pin in that. Let's pause that right there.
Revisit later.
Yeah, revisit that later. You mentioned the Aces going down the line, and I just have to shout out Nalissa Smith because
Yeah.
I was on my Bleacher Report live show earlier today, and someone in the chat was kind of saying that Nalissa was kind of underutilized in game 1, just kind of didn't really know where she was going to be best or who's she guarding. Like it was a little bit of question marks, and it's a long series, so I think there's a lot of question marks going into game 1. But game 2, the Aces figured it out, and they went to her early and often and aggressive, and it was like, yes, we've said it so many times that this is the best decision that the Aces made, the best trade of the regular season.
Absolutely.
And it's showing off in games that really matter and in the playoffs in this type of scenario. So Nalissa Smith, whenever she gets photoshopped with the pink wig after a game, she's doing something right.
Right, and how important like her arriving in Las Vegas was one of those pieces that coincided with that epic win streak, and that's not by coincidence. Like it was such a needed piece for this team, and something particularly with how the Aces maneuvered from game 1 and 2. I've talked to so many coaches through these playoffs and players, and they all say game 1 is a little bit of a figuring out period because you've been so bogged down with a different team for the past week or so. You've minimal prep time, not a lot of practice time. You do what you can, especially for those series that did go 3 games in round 1. You're playing like 48 hours later. You don't have time. And so it just, again, goes to show, okay, game 1, feel it out. you see something that absolutely did not work for you and you course correct. And that was exactly what it was with Melissa Smith, is that, Becky and her coaching staff, her team says, yeah, no, we need to get Melissa more involved, because look at what she did for us every
Mhm.
single other second she's been here. And I'm gonna like shamelessly plug a story that my colleague Kevin Pelton wrote that's on ESPN.com right now, that's looking back at the historic 4-team trade that happened earlier, during free agency, that landed AT and Satu and Phoenix and all these other pieces. But part of that is also Melissa Smith, and how that trade then snowballed into her arriving in Las Vegas as well. So that is my shameless to go read that story at ESPN.com.
Never shameless here. We are always plugging things. I love that. She finished with 18 points, 7 rebounds in 30 minutes. That is like a dream of what you could get
Yes.
from your center, alongside Asia Wilson finishing with 25 and 9. Like that is the expectation that I think so much was missing with when Kia Stokes was kind of starting in that role and not
Mm-hmm.
being so much of an offensive force. That's what hurt the Aces. So when you can get 18 points out of 18 and 25 out of your starting center and forward, you're in good shape. That is,
Yeah.
you're on the right path to winning a lot more games. The other side of this game was what Becky Hammon and Stephanie White had to say about the referees. Shocker. Everyone can pretend to be shocked. The refs aren't doing hot, and the coaches are going to say something about it. And this buzzword of physicality being thrown around
Mm-hmm.
left and right. And essentially, Steph White said that, it was hard for us to get into a flow because the whistle was being blown every few seconds. And Kelsey Mitchell was getting, what'd she say? She was like a pinball out there, like the museum down the road, the Las Vegas Pinball
My
Museum,
God.
because it was so physical. And the Aces had a parade to the free throw line. Then on the other side, Becky Hammon is like, we won the game and still physicality was out of control and there's no freedom of movement and this wouldn't happen in the NBA. Ugh. I feel so torn about this conversation because I'm like, we get it. We know we have some real things to dive into the referees in the off season.
Yes.
But is this going to benefit your team by calling this out, by definitely getting fines for calling out the referees? Are they the refs going to pay more attention to it? Are they going to let more slide? I also think that it's so opposite of the Minnesota and Phoenix series, which like it is physical, but there's been 0 whistles. Like
Yeah,
there's
none.
been a record low of whistles over there. So there is this like foil of how games are being reffed at the playoff level. But do
Yeah.
you have any thoughts about this? Because I'm kind of over it, but I get it, I guess. I don't know how to feel.
Yeah, it's hard, and it makes it harder when both coaches from the winning and losing side are saying this, because if it's the losing coach, you say, okay, well, you lost the game, and you're trying to find an additional reason to why that happened. Look, I think, as you said, there's a lot more to unpack with the officiating of the women's game that we've seen consistently through the season since it tipped off in May. Um, Playoff basketball should be physical, I think. I think more should slide because it is the playoffs. Yeah, I think game 1 of Phoenix, Minnesota was like one of the quickest playoff games ever because there was the fewest amount of free throws ever. I loved that. But from a non-selfish point of view, I think that there should be physicality, but of course there needs to be a line. It shouldn't be physical to the sense of where players cannot play and you're just letting it slide, but also you can't whistle every single thing. I think the most important thing is consistency. between these two series, we are not seeing consistency at all. Of course, it's going to differ from official to official, and their eyes and their the feel of the game, all these kinds of things. But I think that consistency is the most important thing. So you, as a league, needs to decide what the line of physicality is, and you have to hold steady on that. Let them bump around, let them bump up against each other 100%. But if it is truly like impeding a player's ability to play, then then it's probably too. But it's so like it's hard. It's a hard. I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of even talking in circles right now about it, just because like it is hard. But I think my final line is just like, I think that playoff basketball should be more physical than regular season basketball, but it can't be like, oh, there are obvious fouls of being grabbed and being held and being yanked, and there's no whistles about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And I also think that this is just just a different spotlight on an Aaliyah Boston, Asia Wilson matchup. And so that is obviously going to be more physical with just this banging down low post play. You saw Asia get in foul trouble in game 1. And then game 2, Aaliyah Boston only having 10 points, got 13 boards. But is that physicality kind of throwing their game off, not allowing them to be who they need to be?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just kind of don't want it as an excuse. Maybe that's my main thing.
I completely agree with. I completely agree with that. I don't think that it should. If physicality is throwing off your game, I don't know if that's the official's fault. Maybe it is in some ways. Like if if they are blatantly not calling things that should be fouls, okay. But if the bottom line is you can't handle physicality, that isn't the official's fault. I remember in game 1 of the Lynx Valkyrie series, Natalie Nakase also called out, the Valkyries had probably their best offensive quarter that I've seen of them in that first quarter. And Nakase after the game said, well, the refs took us out of our flow. And that's why I can agree that, yeah, you know what, if there's more stops than starts, that probably takes you out of the flow. But I don't think that is the reason why the Lynx beat you by 20. So both can be true. It can take you out of a flow, but that isn't indicative of the result of the game. And so I think again, it's two things can be true, but also just because it's a physical game, like you have to be able to withstand some level of physicality.
For sure. Because I don't think that we're saying a game with or a series with Alyssa Thomas in it is less physical.
Oh my God.
I don't think could be possible.
Oh my God. Number 1 player I am not taking a charge against is Alyssa Thomas. Like, get me out of the way. I'm saving myself. I am sitting on the floor and letting her go by me. Like, I would need to be covered in ice bags the next day. It's simply not happening.
Going back to the Jonas Brothers comment, my favorite thing on the internet right now is people saying that if Nick Jonas can score on Alyssa Thomas, then they can have their concert there.
Nick, out of all of them?
Yeah.
Do we think that he has the best chance?
No. I'm giving it to Kevin, at least. At least. You're going to try, but you're still not. It's a forearm to the chest. You're gone.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're crumbling. They are crumbling.
It's done.
Oh my God.
It's done. All 3 of them against her. No chance. No chance.
You can throw in the 4th one. There's a 4th Jonas brother too, just for good measure.
Frankie, the younger brother. Yeah.
Yeah, no disrespect to Frankie. We love Frankie. I'm a big claim to fame watcher when it was on, which had Frankie Jonas in it. So,
see, I never watched that show.
Oh, so good. Bring it back.
Loved the Jonas Brothers. I loved the Jonas Brothers. Man. Okay, this is too much about me. The game 3 is back in Indy. Indiana does lead the league in home 3-point percentage. So you know that they are going to let it fly from home court advantage. They have a very rambunctious crowd, so they definitely have home court advantage. I think that Kelsey Mitchell does not have a 13-point game again. But, I'm putting myself on the spot on who's going to get game 3. Oh, gosh. I'm still going Aces. Yeah,
I think I had the Aces sweeping. And so actually, no. No, I had it 3-1. And so I'm sticking to my 3-1 prediction.
Right.
I just think that the Aces, they have so many weapons. I don't think you're going to catch them sleeping like you did in game 1 again.
You won't. You will get tired of guarding Asia Wilson for multiple games in a row. It just it wears you down. It wears you down. I could imagine. Yeah. So that's a part of their whole game plan there. All right, we're going to take another break, and then when we come back, it is Coach's Corner, and I got some stuff that I need to get off my chest. So we'll be back. Welcome back to the Women's Hoop Show, and let's see. How do I want to get into this? Some news that shocked the WNBA world is Sandy Brondello being let go, or her contract not being renewed next season, I guess in very particular terms. It is the first time that it has ever happened in the WNBA where a coach is let go a season after they win the championship. Kendra, here's the thing. I heard a rumor that if the Liberty didn't go back to back, that Sandy was going to be out of a job. And I immediately scoffed at that. I said, what? No, they just won the championship last year. I think I even said in the WNBA, you have a little bit of a longer leash if you don't win the championship immediately. And I was so wrong. What was your first reaction when you got this notification or when you heard about this news?
Some things for a bit that he could be on the hot seat. And my initial reaction to that weeks prior to this news was like kind of as you just said, like she just won a title for this team. Like that's a crazy quick turnaround. My second thought was, do you have someone lined up? Because I had just observed a couple months prior, observed from afar, New York Knicks and them firing Thibodeau, and they went on this wild goose chase to hire a new coach after he had gotten them to the Eastern Conference Finals. So after that, my thought was, okay, do you guys have a plan? Because you have a championship coach right here. Who do you think is better fit for this job? And then when it actually happened, I was like, oh my God, they actually did it. Like that is, it is a lot. It is still shocking. It is still surprising. You mentioned like having a little bit of a longer leash in the W, or a longer lifeline in the W. The owners of the New York Liberty they have history in the NBA as well, and so they operate under it is a championship or it is nothing. I think something
Mhm.
super interesting that their general manager, Jonathan Kolb, talked about with a small group of reporters earlier today was that this apparently was on the table if they hadn't won last year as well. That goes to show what mindset the New York Liberty organization is functioning under, because there isn't time, there isn't any leash, any room, anything but a championship was not going to be acceptable. So I think those were my initial thoughts on this. And by the way, the fact that if she didn't win last year, that they would have, that maybe not even extended her to this year, was to me almost more shocking than what happened just a couple of days ago.
Shocked, utter disbelief when I saw this quote from that press conference that you talked about. This is from Kolb. He says, quote, "A coaching change was very much under consideration last season. We won the championship, but it's not about the end result. That moment will always mean the world to me and many people in this city and our fan base, but it was about how we went about it." End quote. I was more confused after listening to clips from his press conference than I was before, because my whole thing, what we were talking about was, well, they won the championship. It had to be great. It had to be amazing. He's saying, yeah, that was cool. We didn't really like her anyway, but we couldn't have fired her because she just won a championship. That's what I take from that, where it was like, we would have fired her last year, but it would have been an extra bad look to fire her at the parade. Like, I am so surprised by this. And in other quotes that have come out, he's mentioning things, not about the end result. It's about sustaining this type of success, which I feel like is very results based. And then something else was a question about, what qualities are you looking for in the next head coach? And he refused to answer that because he didn't want it to feel like Sandy was lacking those qualities, which if you let someone go, then they are. So it was so mind-boggling, this idea that Sandy has won at multiple levels, and she has won here, like 37 wins in the finals, 37 wins and a championship. And that wasn't enough. Makes me think that there's something else going on here, something else cooking.
That you will never, there's so much that goes on behind closed doors that either never gets out, takes a little longer to get out. Like there's so many facets to why changes are made in organizations that aren't always result driven. And I agree. Like hearing you read that quote again, it is kind of like, wait, what are we talking about here? You just never know what the culture of a place or what is going on in these organizations. And again, I've seen it a lot of different times, a lot of different teams and organizations where it really doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface that they would make a decision like this. But again, I do, the thing that I do believe from Jonathan Kolb's press conference is him saying that this was not reactionary. I do believe that because, like you kind of said, I do think that this is something that they had been mulling on for. I think back to when a very talented reporter, Madeline Kenny, asked after the Liberty season was done. She asked in a press conference to Stewie and to Sabrina about Sandy, and everyone's reaction is like, "What are you talking about? Why are you asking?" No, it was an informed question. This has been on. This has been a thing for a while. Sandy being on the hot seat, but again, it doesn't necessarily make sense from the outside looking in. It still doesn't. But I do believe that it wasn't a reactionary thing. So I will give them that in that regard. I saw a graphic on Twitter, Instagram, or something there that says three there are three of the longest tenured coaches in the W. One of them is Cheryl Reeve. She was hired by Minnesota in 2010, I believe. So that's 15 years ago. Becky Hammon, hired 4 years ago. Number three, Nate Tibbetts. It is his second year with Phoenix, and Nate Tibbetts is the third longest tenured head coach in the WNBA.
Ah,
What? What?
that graphic made me want, like, my head was about to explode because this
What?
has been a thing. And it is, and we've talked about it. We've gone into depth about 8 new head coaches. And me and Cheryl Swoops had a great
Oh my
conversation
God.
about how that was a very huge decision, but
Yes.
league wide, because also Jonathan Kolb hinted at it's not just our team, it's the direction the league is going. Like, it was a league wide decision to bring in all of these new faces, most of them men,
Yes.
last season. And we said, this is either going to go really well or really bad, or set a precedent for turnover and head coaches
Mm-hmm.
and the carousel, which
Mm-hmm.
is very NBA to me. Like, that is
Yes.
very much, we're
100%.
rotating people and people are getting fired left and right. We don't bat an eye. Like, that's not how the W has been run historically. It just kind of
Yeah.
hasn't. Maybe certain franchises, but not league
Yeah.
wide. It's
It's
very
true.
bizarre. And so, to that point, we look at Noelle Quinn being let go after 5 seasons in Seattle, and now there are no longer zip Black women head coaches in a league that is predominantly Black, and that is another soapbox for another day that I could gladly be on. But the other part of it is Tyler Marsh and Chris Koklanis, the coaches for Chicago and Dallas, their organizations coming out and saying, we're going to stick beside them. We're going to, you know what? We're sticking beside our 10-win men. And a lot of outrage was because of that. Like, how could they? They have had a losing seasons and all of this. And my response to that is it's not typical for coaches to be fired after one season. It is not typical. But when that just happened to Teresa Witherspoon, that's where the outrage is linked. So now there is a new precedent set of shorter leashes. And so how come Teresa Witherspoon had 6 months truly to kind of have her feeling and have her way with this team, have a better record than Tyler Marsh, and be let go? And then these other coaches have a longer leash, even though, like, are we starting a new precedent after just this year? Like, it feels inconsistent, and that is my issue with this coaching. It just feels like we're going down a different road here in the WNBA, where I believe Sandy Brondello is going to should show up at Seattle, Toronto, or Portland, and then now we get on this wheel. Who's going to be let go next? And are they going to hop around to different teams? And are we going to just be picking from the same people? Are we going to pull from the NBA? Where else are we going to get these coaches from? It just feels set up for failure, is what I feel in my gut.
Yeah. I don't think you can do anything in 1 year. You need more time. It's interesting. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about Sandy and where she should land. We're talking about the different options. We're talking about Seattle. And I said, is she a good player development coach?
Mm.
Because of course they have like Malonga and stuff. And they said, I don't know. In the W, there aren't that many opportunities for coaches to develop players. And I'm like, well, that's not how it should be. You need, it's like, you need time to build. Whether that's with a veteran team, but especially with a younger, more greener team, you need time to build relationships, build chemistry, build habit, all of these things. And so I don't think it's good for the W to enter this like you have 1 year and then you're out type of carousel. I also think, something that Becky Hammon talked about pre-game in game two about Sandy is like you need you need to be able to have growing pains, and you need to be able to not fail is a strong word, but to not win and
Mhm.
then go back and say, okay, what can we do better? Because if you keep hitting the reset button, that isn't going to get you anywhere either. And she gave an example. Again, let's go to the NBA because this coaching carousel is very common there. She mentioned Devin Booker, who's been through so many head coaches in his career. They made it to the finals in 2021. Frank Vogel's gone. I think that, no, it wasn't Frank Vogel in 2021. Gosh, I'm blanking on who their head coach was for the Suns. But anyway, and
Yeah.
then I live 90 minutes north of Sacramento, another NBA team who has just cycled and cycled and cycled through head coaches, and they haven't gotten anywhere either. There is a reason why the tenured head coaches, Steve Kerr, Eric Spoelstra, Greg Popovich, that they cyclically, maybe they have down years, but they come back around because you need time to build. And so when you look at the WNBA, like you said, Sandy got the Liberty final championship, like finals championship. Okay. You look at a case like Chicago, Teresa Witherspoon probably should have had more time with Angel Reese, where it was her rookie year, getting her feet wet. Like, you have to give people time and trust that, listen, it might not happen every single year, but you need to be able to rework, because hitting reset, maybe you hit the jackpot and it works. We have seen that. Or you just reset everything and you're going to have to, like, how much time do they have? Because
Mhm.
then we're just like right back to this one and done type of thing. It's not sustainable.
Exactly. That's my point. My first thought was, oh, Teaspoon. You should definitely hire Teaspoon for this. Coming back to the Liberty, it would be amazing. Morale would be high. The fans would love it. And then I backtracked and I said, well, now I don't know if I want her to be put in this position, because it kind of feels like you're setting up whoever comes in next, that even if they take the team to the championship, that doesn't matter. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of setting that precedent in New York basketball, that it's not result based. So we'll see if you come and we like you, then we'll see how long you last. That's a tough
Yeah.
thing to even get excited about someone getting into that position. I had the exact same feelings about the NBA and the first woman coach. When all of these teams and these coaching positions would be up, and they say they're interviewing Dawn Staley, they're interviewing Becky Hammon, a part of me was like, gosh, I don't know if I want that opportunity for them, because it feels like a setup. Like, are you going to allow those growing pains? Or is it going to say, we gave you an opportunity, all right, we're going to take it away? It's a tough thing to be in as a fan, as somebody who covers the league. And also I think about Cheryl Reeve. Cheryl Reeve is our only example right now of somebody and a franchise that has stuck beside her. Think about, during the 2010s, she was winning a championship almost every year. If 1 year she didn't win the championship, if you fired her and said, well, it wasn't results based, but you just won a championship, you didn't win it this year, I guess we're going to have to let you go. There was another one coming the next year and a couple more down the road. Like, are you giving up too soon? That it feels like an impossible job. I know it's a hard job, but
It's, and it's hard. It's hard when you're trying, and I think again Becky said it, of like, when you're trying to correct something wrong, it feels like replacing the head coach is the easiest thing to replace. that's not, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's like fully true. Maybe it is. No, maybe it is true, but it's not fair. Um, it leaves everyone in a weird spot. Again, it goes back to my first question, which is, do you guys know, do you have someone in mind that you wanted to hire? Are you promoting? You have some great like assistant coaches. Are you promoting from there? Or do you have a college coach who you're looking to tap? Something that Jonathan talked about in his press conference is that they are looking at everyone and anyone from any coaching background. But like you bring up a good point. Is like it's such an attractive market and it's attractive team, but if this is the standard that you're held to, does that make it still attractive, or is it less attractive because you don't win a championship every single year that you might be booted? That's a scale. There's already such like little stability in this life and this lifestyle and this business. It's like, okay, that's even less stable than what I was expecting.
Man, it's even if you do win a championship, your job is not safe. That's the part that just gets me. I can't. Look, that is why I am a podcast host, journalist, and not a WNBA head coach. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't want to be blamed for everything. I can't do it. I know it's a hard job.
It is. And I think it's going to be interesting. I'm super interested to watch the Liberty's offseason. I mean, I was already interested. Again, everyone's a free agent. And now I'm even more interested to see exactly what happens.
Oh, yeah. I think that this is a huge, we talked about how huge this offseason is. But when you're trying to get free agents and you don't know who the coach is, one has to come before the other. Like, you're going to either need to make a coaching hire. And this is for the expansion teams too, honestly. You need to put the person, the face, quickly so that free agents know, yes, I want to go play for Sandy, or I don't want to go play for Sandy, or whoever the Toronto Tempo and Portland, Seattle is going to have as the face of their franchises. That's why also I think we're seeing these coaching firings so quick. The hirings need to be just as quick because there's a lot of influx. And I think that is too much influx if you're asking people to sign with you with these new CBAs and come drink the Kool-Aid of our franchise, but we don't have a coach. Like that can't happen. Both of those things can't be true. So fascinating. Somehow this offseason is going to get even crazier. I love that for us. There's not going to be an offseason. We are going to be talking about the WNBA.
Oh my God.
Every week, every day, which is my favorite thing, until next season. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was at Unrivaled in season 1, and I'm really hoping I'm back for season 2 because I just have a feeling that location in Miami is going to be a hotbed for free agency fun. So,
even more so than last season because we knew that's what it was last year. Exactly. Oh, that's a great point. That is a great point. Okay, I'm stressed now. I'm sweating. I feel like I need to go take a walk.
Drink some water. Herbal tea. I hear herbal tea is really soothing for the stomach.
Jeez, this coaching. But we have playoff basketball back Friday and Sunday. Kendra, it is always so much fun. Thank you for yapping with me. Thank you for letting me vent. Appreciate it. Have fun in Phoenix.
Part podcast, part therapy. It's what it's all about.
It is. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an update. Your support means the world. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a quick rating or review helps more Hoops fans discover the show. And you can now see us on our brand new YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe there. Shoot us an email at women'shoops@odyssey.com to tell us what's on your mind. We want to hear your hottest takes, your burning questions, and all your feelings about all things women's hoops. We just might feature your note on the show. That's Women's Hoops at Odyssey.com. The Women's Hoop Show is an Odyssey original podcast hosted by me, Jordan Robinson. Our producer is Phil Switek. Our video team is led by Kurt Courtney and includes Tim Meikle, Evan Cox, Allison Jeffrey, and Lauren Vieira. Our executive producers are Greg Holtzman, Asha Saluja, Danny Freisinger, Maddie Sprunkheiser, and Leah Reese-Dennis. And special thanks to Moira Curran and Josephina Francis.